Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Agile is a Competitive Advantage Manufacturers Need in 2022. My name is Megan and I'll be the moderator today. I'm excited to introduce our main speaker, Eddie Atkins. Eddie has spent over 15 years in manufacturing operations and MES systems, building sustainable manufacturing improvement programs using the latest Industry 4.0 and digital tools, as well as tried and tested Agile techniques. Take it away, Eddie.
Hey. Hi, everyone. Really nice to be here today. I'm excited to talk to you and share some of my experiences of working with Agile in customers. I think, like, at heart, I'm a true manufacturing improvement, I would say, geek or nerd. And I think getting to work more and more on the digital and seeing some of the things that are happening in the cloud and the transition at the moment is really exciting. And yeah, hopefully share some perspectives on Agile manufacturing as we see it today, and I plan to share lots of customer examples as well from what I see that companies are doing, hopefully giving you some good ideas about how to get the most from Agile manufacturing. So yeah, three areas we're going to cover. Like, one is a perspective on Agile manufacturing today. So I think we're seeing a lot manufacturers learning from software development, software deployment. I think software learned from lean manufacturing when they started doing software development. Now manufacturing starting to learn from that, and we have a few perspectives and a few examples from customers. Yeah, for us, we see Agile continue to be important in 2022. I think it's a super important lever, really can give you a competitive advantage. Share a bit on what we're seeing there as well. And finally, getting a bit practical, how can you get started, some tips and tricks based on what we see. So yeah, excited to share these with you and also have some discussion at the end, and hear from you what you're seeing, maybe how what we've seen fits with your experiences. Would love to talk through some of those things. So excited to go through. And firstly, just want to share a bit where we see Agile manufacturing today. And I think the applicable of Agile in manufacturing is as large as ever. Operations executives I really see, and supply chain professionals continuing to see that Agile and manufacturing, Agile supply chain, Agile ways of working are really going to be the way of helping improve and make improvement happen in manufacturing. So I think super important. Operations continues to be a large, everything around us is being made, and everything. This is why we're all here. So from a manufacturing perspective, we continue to see a rapidly evolving environment, like an environment that's changing, processes are changing, operators are seeing improvements. From a technological perspective, lots of surveys, including Gartner survey, are showing that the technology is developing, but manufacturing is not keeping up with it as well. And the demands from a workforce side, really trying to understand what is important. We're seeing workforces that are challenged. Recruiting is being challenged. Workforces are demanding more. They expect more from the technology. So a constantly evolving environment. We look at Agile manufacturing as a flexible, bottom-up innovation and augmentation approach that helps you to adapt through an iterative process to changing conditions. So it's a set of slightly different definition to maybe you've heard before, but I think a way of thinking about improving your manufacturing using technology to do that, but really iterating and solving problems and how you respond to those solving problems. So we've started to work through sort of four areas where we think are really important, or four really important values for manufacturing. One is the flexibility. So I think flexibility starts at the core of any manufacturing system, and really designing for flexibility. And I think in manufacturing, back back in the past. We know that Toyota used like SMED-based approaches to build in flexibility to their system. So they use SMED to improve reduce changeover times, which allowed them to do smaller batch runs. That was building flexibility into their systems, so they could compete and they didn't have to do mass production. We've seen it from a people side. Again, with Toyota, from a flexible manpower systems, they designed their cells, their lean cells, to cope with different takt times and being able to flex operators in and out of those cells to manage for those takt times. You see it from a people perspective with Volvo earlier and others using banks of hours to allow for in longer weeks when demand was high and shorter weeks when demand was low. So without having to take on extra cost. So I think equipment, people, we know, long knowing those levers in manufacturing and using them for flexibility. What we're starting to see now is really the IT systems catching up with that. And I think you look into technology and the way software is being developed, it's being developed using those building blocks. And those building blocks we can now use them in manufacturing to actually digitize as well. So when we're talking about no-code platforms, elements like moving from a big MES style data model, hierarchical, monolithic data model into something that's more emergent, where you can build apps that just solve a particular problem, that don't have to solve the whole world or be designed for this whole world. So you can get something that's much more iterative and much more improvement. When, like, the software example of this is, your WhatsApp on your phone doesn't know the data model for the Google Photos library on your phone, but you're able to send a Google photo from your photo library into WhatsApp, and they're talking to each other. They've got their own data models, but they have a shared API layer data model. The second part here is using libraries of components and template applications that allow you to not have to reinvent from scratch every time, to actually build off patterns that exist already and accelerate the building. And that's exactly how software is developed. So software is being built off of libraries of code. No one's writing a full software program from scratch. And this is something we can leverage here. So, and also from a DevOps perspective or a platform perspective, you don't have to do all the hosting of all the databases, of all the applications yourself. It's exactly the same with the apps on your phone. Like, the people that built those apps and run those apps are not hosting the databases that make those apps successful. And we see this with the Tulip platform, for example. Recently, there was an AWS outage in one of the regions, and we were able to quickly move a lot of the users that were affected, our users that were affected in that region, into another region. So we were able to leverage, like, our global scale as an organization to do that piece of hosting management and reduce the amount of downtime that our users saw. Whereas if the users had been running that locally or been running their own even cloud AWS instance, it's unlikely they'd have had the scale of flexibility to do that. So really spent quite a bit of time on this first one, flexibility. But for me, this is like the core platform and some of the things that I'm really seeing change as I work with manufacturers. So the next one we start to think about in our agile fundamental values is really the bottom up part. So traditionally, as in lean, in all improvement methodologies, and many of you in manufacturing will know, going to Gemba, going to the shop floor and understanding the problem is super important. That doesn't go away. That still exists. We now wanting to more and more empower those individuals to solve their own problems, to have the tools, to have the digitization tools to solve their own problems. And that decentralization, that democratization of the innovation is what I'm seeing that these platforms are doing. And I think it's amazing. We still need those IT resources, engineers that know how to connect the systems together, and know how to connect the ITs together, the different bits of IT, the different enterprise systems together, and being able to have being able to build these building blocks and start to deploy them in such a way that actually they don't have to be there solving all the problems. They can just build components, and this is where the libraries concept comes in. And finally, how do you do this in a way that really means that you can safeguard what you're doing? And having platforms means that people can't just go off and build whatever. You actually have the ability to safeguard, control, and ensure compliance of what's being built. I think there's a very potentially you're opening up something to be built at the bottom. Can the power of software, where can they go? Is it unreasonable? And actually, what we're seeing is that companies are actually being able to do high levels of safeguarding with the no-code platforms. I have one customer that is starting to automate on top of their platform the compliance rules. So they have bottom-up engineers building applications to solve their particular problems in their sites, and then they have sets of rules and standards that they should be using, and they don't have to check every app fully to see if those compliance rules are being made. They're actually able to run algorithms and over the data to understand if the compliance rules and best practices are being met, and then see if there's duplications and give feedback to the operators. So I think actually being able to give increased compliance versus maybe a very monolithic system where you would have to, maybe if you needed a workaround, that workaround might end up being done on paper or by over email in some way, and actually in a more uncontrolled environment. So yeah, bottom up, like solving problems at the front line, enabling those frontline operators, frontline engineers to solve their problems, scaling the IT engineering constrained resource, and also adding higher complexity, higher levels of compliance. So that's the second one, is our bottom up. Our third one here, for the value that we really see is important in our customers, is rapid iteration. So this is setting a small goal, quickly trying to resolve it. So like identifying a problem you want to solve and rapidly trying to solve it. And we see this, like this comes from the plan, do, check app examples, and it comes from the plan, do, check, act as before. And I don't think it's very different to that. But also we're actually seeing customers pull in people more globally to this problem solving. I have one customer that's actually started using Jira, which Jira is a software platform for cloud software platform for developing software. And they've actually started using that in their operations for running their engineering and running all their improvement projects. And this, what is really interesting, they're no longer building big Gantt charts and running projects in the sort of traditional way. They're using a more sprint-based agile methodology to actually running their projects, and learning from software development in the way that they're trying to solve their problems in their shop floor. And I think really interesting that they've started to use a platform like Jira, which is originally built for building software. And then secondly, also started to see customers, so I'm sure yourself, like use Microsoft Teams or other collaboration platforms to start to build cross-functional networks and actually work together to actually bring teams that maybe can't come and sit together, but actually help each other solve problems. So some really interesting collaboration methodologies, but still really focused around this kind of rapid sprint methodology. And finally, the fourth area that we look at, and I probably should have actually put this up front, because really this is the vision I think that we're aiming for. And here at Tulip, we really, one of the reasons we really exist is we don't think that processes are going to be fully automated and black light out facilities. Like, we really believe that the human is going to be in the loop, and building and like this augmented worker kind of end position where they have really great applications that help them run their processes. They're very intuitive, this really powerful improved user experience. And I think that's going to be essential for attracting people into manufacturing. It's going to be essential for solving many of the core challenges that you have in manufacturing, but also helping to solve like critical quality problems. I think the sort of analogy I have here is and I'm sure everyone has heard of Elon Musk and the days that he spent sleeping in the Tesla factory, and he really made a mind shift change from thinking he could automate all of the production of the Tesla to realizing that the human is always going to need to be in the loop. And yeah, we're there, and we really believe that the vision that you're trying to create within any agile manufacturing process is this augmented worker. Pulling those 4 elements together. So we have like the first one, the flexibility that I spoke about, having these building on like the flexible people power systems, like flexibility, like how you're going to have flexible people, they're building on existing equipment flexibility levers, but now also having like IT and OT flexibility levers. Secondly, bottom up, leveraging your IT, leveraging cross-functional teams, but really doing that at the front line, enabling your frontline workers to solve their own problems. Rapid iteration cycles, 2-week sprints, really focusing on delivering quickly and testing and trying, and finally creating this vision of the augmented worker, and really, I think, really creating a sort of a futuristic manufacturing experience. Some of the like traditional problems that we're seeing, and how does our the agile manufacturing approach apply to that? So, yeah, first problem, typical problem in manufacturing: how do you onboard new staff? How do you get them up to full productivity quickly? How do you ensure that like more experienced workers are as productive as less experienced workers? How do we make sure everyone is effective? And also maybe when you get new equipment, how do you teach people on a new line, a new piece of equipment, a new process? I think, yeah, traditionally we see that we're relying on operator knowledge, operator skills, like paper-based instructions, training is just not good enough, doesn't meet the needs for manufacturing, doesn't enable you to control those variability. What we see with the no-code operations platform and Industry 4.0 technologies is you're able to actually create fully integrated workflows, whether it's integrating devices, integrating cameras that help you see, like, control the workflow process, monitor the workflow process, give feedback in real time to the operator on the workflow, so they can make sure they're following the right workflow and help them, coach them to see how they can improve. Also, a lot of the complexity that maybe lies with knowing which particular part or reading a long set of work instructions can be digitized into that workflow, into that application as well. So the sequence that the operator goes through and some of the nuances that they might need to know in a complex process can actually be automated, and we see step changes in improvement, in productivity improvement from this. I think the second one that kind of fits with that is, how are you catching defects as early as possible in the process, and how can you quickly identify root causes of those? So, I mean, worst case, you're not catching defects till the end of the process. Like, it's not a new target to be trying to catch defects as close to when they occur as possible. Not always possible because of like adding extra time into the process, the cost of implementing maybe those inspection routines. I think what is really interesting, and what I'm seeing customers do more and more with the no-code space, is being able to put in like these digital instructions that either error-proof the process or at least are collecting data on in real time as the process is being run. That helps you inspect it. Maybe they're using low-cost computer vision to actually monitor a process, like make sure it's following the process is being followed, or ideally even use it to look for defects locally and feed that back to the operator. I think what we're seeing is that customers are actually catching defects, able to quickly identify root causes without waiting for, say, the end of the day or the end of the next day to actually have them identified and have to go and understand what's happened. It's really happening there and then. So I think really important application of the technology and the agile sort of problem solving approach that it enables. Next, moving on to kind of maybe an excuse that we hear for productivity, or maybe a kind of hidden productivity loss, is like compliance is slowing down, or being a core part of an operation. So often in life sciences, for example, the FDA's 21 CFR Part 11 outline strict rules for what needs to be in place, and sometimes that's hard to put in place with a digital system. There's, in many other industries, QMS and compliance often requires paper-based processes for signatures and to prove that the part has been made to the right processes by the right people. The no-code platforms are able to now cover those paper-based, cover those QMS systems, adhere to the FDA's 21 CF Part 11 in life sciences, for example, and actually able now to collect that data in real time as the process is happening. I think this, and actually creating another level of traceability and compliance. And in life sciences, we have customers that are actually collecting this data and no longer have to wait till the end of the process to release. They can actually release almost in real time as a batch is being produced, for example. So they're able to monitor the processes as they go through and automatically check if they're meeting the needs. They're no longer having to do reducing the manual batch record reviews that need to happen at the end of the process, and actually automating a lot of that. So I just want to touch a couple of maybe other frameworks. You probably may have seen them before, coming from sort of software side and software theory. I think really interesting. So this is how do you organize for disrupting from an agile perspective? And like on the left hand side, we sort of have a traditional organization with silos and different maybe business units, maybe different functions that are getting sort of top down hierarchy. We have a chunky layer of bureaucracy in the middle. What we're really talking about when we're thinking about agile organizations is how can you have a very much flatter organization where you're setting direction, setting tough goals, and forming teams that go and solve particular problems. So this is the kind of approach, and I'll share a bit later an example where a customer is doing this to actually deploy their no-code platform. The second one I wanted to talk through was actually this composable thinking, and I think I'm not going to go through all of these 7 items on here, but I think what we're really trying to get at is get a way of feeling comfortable with going, challenging, going and making change, making lots of little changes, pushing not being happy with the current state, but also as you're building, not trying to build big monolithic systems, but building small modules, small bits of functionality that then can be leveraged and scaled and can be like force multipliers. So it's a change in the way you're thinking, and customers that we see start to take on this way of thinking that they work with, we really see a big success in the way they adopt the industry 4.0 toolkit. This is affirmed by Gartner. So they're looking at how is manufacturing sort of keeping up or achieving the full potential of technology. And actually over time, Gartner is seeing that manufacturing as a business is not able to meet the full potential of what technology could offer to it. And I think when they look into that, they really see that the composable approach, this composable mindset, is something that stops that gap from being achieved. So yeah, I think if if you take one thing away, like taking this composable approach back to your organizations and thinking about how you can bring it in is going to be important for you for like getting success out of new initiatives over the next year, for sure. Let's move over into importance of Agile, and then into our third section, like how you can get started. So I think trends, where are we in 2022? We continue to see disruptive events, whether it's more like weather events. We don't know if we need to talk about the pandemic of the last few years. It probably continues to be on all our minds. I mean, 10 years ago, or in 2008, we had the global economic disruption, and I think this is something that we're going to continue to expect. Like, these unknown events are going to occur, and we're going to like global supply chains are going to have to deal with them. We talked a bit earlier about workforce transformation. Like, if we want to, I suppose the workforce demands are definitely changing. They're used to having an iPhone in their pocket with apps on it. They're used to having intuitive applications and expect the same from where they're working. They expect to have these kind of same interfaces, these same interactions with technology. They're, I think, also looking for more out of work than just somewhere where they can go and earn money. They actually become somewhere that they're getting a lot of value from. Fourthly, I think from a customer perspective, sure, customers will have demands. They want better products, they want them faster, they want them more customized. I think what will be interesting will be how like traceability drives and maybe moves not just from life sciences but into beyond kind of core, and that you actually want to know where have their products come from, where have their clothes come from, and actually a value in being able to show that it was where it was packed, and like Agile technologies allow you to do that. And a continued move to the cloud. We're seeing it more and more, like the acceptance of having that data in the cloud. And I think we heard a bit more about like the additional compliance that technology brings to you, but I think also like the stability that it brings for you. If you want to use these technologies, sort of hosting them and looking after them, trying to run these systems yourself is going to not enable you. Like, learn from how software has been developed and deployed, and think about using the cloud and using cloud technologies, using platforms to actually put that kind of hard work out there and with people, with someone else. So how do we get that competitive advantage? So I think from disruptive events, this is really about how you could have this is interesting that, again, going back to the rapid iteration, being able to respond to disruptive events is about rapidly iterating, like having this in your genome as an organization, and being able to, an event happens, how do we like see that as something exciting and get motivated and respond to it, basically. The workforce side, like I think we talked a lot about the actual augmented worker, like that as a vision, and creating that kind of that work state in the shop floor, making it a place that feels more modern and a place that is intuitive to work in, but also thinking about, like, I think these agile teams that we talked about, that is a way of getting better collaboration, more inspiring way of working, and I think is very powerful. Customization, if you can rapidly iterate your products, if you can quickly change your work instructions, if we are able to like retrain our operators or change our processes, retrain the operators quicker because we have better instructions that are showing them, that we have like digital platforms enabled to do them. That customization becomes easier because we have those flexibility levers at our fingertips. And finally, like the cloud adoption start to give you a lot of transparency all around. So yeah, a bit like iteration. Again, this is like another example of how a customer, this is sort of taken from customer example, they have their frontline processes, which they've put into operations apps. Excuse me. I mean, these apps are now like digital digital instructions. They're much more like what people are used to having on their iPhones. Start to collect, as their apps are being used, those apps are collecting real-time process data, and then the engineers are using those to optimize the processes. And then they use that, what comes out of those processes improves the frontline process, and very quickly the iterative process happens. And from a disruptive event perspective, if something happens that affects your process in some way, having this at your fingertips enables you to rapidly, having this way of working enables you to rapidly change. I think sort of this idea of maybe customization and how that could fit with an operations platform, no-code platform. So here you're seeing maybe a shop floor with a system of applications. Maybe your process change. So you've got a guided workflow in the bottom left, and the process change there. Like you can very quickly change that guided workflow. You could put a highlight in it that shows the operator how it's changed, and you've been able to maybe like recustomize, or that one work instruction could take the customization from your back-end processes. So can help to less reliant on maybe the operator's skill, the operator's knowledge to be able to make changes, to have mass customization. Finally, from a cloud perspective, I think this is showing a dashboard here. This is sort of typical with deploying to cloud. One of the benefits here is like you're able to get this type of information globally across different locations, and see it all in one place. I think it's super powerful. So you're seeing a nice dashboard here. This is like maybe audits that are completed, safety audits that are completed in a plant, for example, and helps you really understand and see if a particular plant maybe is having issues. So yeah, that was sort of why we believe it's important how to move forward. And then I'm sure you're all now itching to get started. Let's find out how we do it and how we'd recommend it. So I think for me here, like pretty simple. It's really just, well, it's not simple. It's very difficult, but it's like, let's just get going. The more you wait, the more you don't start working in this way, the more likely you're never going to get there. So you need a bit of bravery. We can do this. Get a team together and get started. I think for me, on the sort of thought of 4 steps really that can help you get started. One is let's get some goals. You need to understand the goals and objectives and get aligned towards those. I think secondly, you need a team that's going to help you solve those goals, and they need to probably be cross-functional, something technical, someone from the front line, but let's gather that team together. And then thirdly, we have this sprint way of working is critical. 2-week sprints are very common. You pick an objective to deliver something in those 2 weeks towards maybe your end goal, and you go you build it, you deliver it. This is the rapid iteration. You test it, you put it in front of the operators, you get some feedback, you learn from it, and you really getting into this sprint cycle of delivering small bits of functionality, as they would say, or small solutions to problems, and getting feedback and then iterating from there. And then continue to just iterate, improve, and then as the more you learn, refine your goals, refine your vision, and I think you can start working towards a really, really great culture. So I think first is the culture and purpose is really important. One, start small, achievable, giving some purpose. I think secondly, again, the sprints, focus together towards a goal in that sprint, but they're a sprint. It's a lot a big focus, a lot of work. Take a break, take a breath, review what you've learned, and go on to the next one. Again, the rapid cycles, try and get real-time data as part of that. Start maybe very simple with just, if it's building an application, to get some transparency. And the second in your first sprint, I think that's important. Build something that's useful. And then, take some technology, try and use it to improve the flow and the organization of your processes. This is sort of a kind of sanitized, I suppose, high-level example from how one of our customers is using, deploying a kind of the agile approach at scale at their organization. So the top right, what you're seeing is a pilot or a project to actually go and deploy, say, or solve a problem in a production area, basically. And maybe this is like a 12-week, 3-month type exercise, something like that. And really in those 12 weeks, at the start, they'll gather the goals, they'll gather the team, and then they'll spend those 12 weeks doing, say, 6 2-week sprints to really implement the functionality. And then from there, they continue to iterate and improve maybe that involvement. On the bottom, they do this in one place, they then go and do it in 2, they then go and do it in 3, and over time they expand through a plant and they scale through across multiple plants, taking this methodology. And by the end, it becomes like 18 months time down the road, they're starting to see a huge step change in value creation, and also like this starts to become a new way of working in a plant. What you see on the bottom here is a bit like the libraries I was talking about right at the beginning. So the centralized data model, the edge connectivity, the microservices. These are things then that the central team, maybe the IT technical engineers, the experts are building and enabling for people to use. So this could be a connection to a enterprise service that allows the applications that are being deployed in the shop floor to actually like update and pull data from SAP, for example, in real time. So iterative approach, sprints within those blue box, the pilots or the projects, and then growing those projects over time. And then maybe going a bit more with that sort of same customer example, mapping it back to our 4 main values that we saw. So how did they work with those? So first of all, on the flexibility side, they actually built a library of common solutions. So they were taking common applications that they would be using in their facilities. They built a library of those. So like a work order tracking or a defect tracking, they built a standard structure for those. So you didn't have to, as a frontline engineer, didn't have to reinvent the wheel of how am I going to track work orders. There was a kind of standard there, but you could adjust the front end, you could adjust the data model slightly to fit what you needed in your shop floor operation or how your shop floor was structured. Second part of the key flexibility lever they had was the central team actually setting up the enterprise IT connector set. So this is, like I said before, the central IT team set up the connector to SAP, and then all the sites could then use that connector as their apps were deployed. From a bottom-up perspective, they really opened the platform to pretty much anyone that wanted to use it. So they had a playground area where people could jump in and build applications. So this was the kind of free-for-all. But there was, to get something in production, there was a real set of gatekeepers, reviews, whether that's quality, compliance. There was a formal procedure to get an application in production. There was a lot of role modeling from the leadership team. So we saw the senior leaders, the vice presidents of operations sort of promoting the platform, new ways of working. They were sharing, rewarding success of people that had say, deployed a Kanban application that added a lot of value. They were promoting that success and sharing, rewarding that success of those people. So really great role modeling and rewarding of success. And finally, to leverage the experts of the platform and the IT experts, they were running ask an expert sessions where, say, like once a week, it was like open office hours. Anyone could dial in and join, ask their questions to the experts. These sessions were like fully recorded and documented, and they were published on their team site. So actually everyone didn't have to go to the session to learn from them and get access. They became searchable repositories. So really trying to enable this bottom-up skill build, bottom-up development process. In the top right-hand corner, how did they tackle the rapid iteration? So this was like the previous slide really, but these agile deployments, they had like 3-month agile deployments. They were goal focused. Every deployment had a very clear productivity step change or solving a particular quality problem. They took improvement milestones throughout those 3 months, and they were doing like 2 weekly sprints to deliver those. And those teams that were doing them were a real cross-functional mix, local people, shop floor supervisors, process engineers, but also members from the central team that knew the platform and had some IT expertise. And finally, they're creating a really great augmented worker experience, whether that's for like solving quality problems or tracking work orders. So really, really impressive to see what they're building. So I think another customer example, this customer here is using Tulip again. So this is Piaggio Fast Forward. Really exciting to see how they use the platform to enable their agile manufacturing approach and use it to adjust and adapt both the processes and the products and ensure that they have an MES basically that they're able to adapt. It's great to see. Right, this is two more slides, I think. So for those of you maybe have tuned out or have heard a lot of my voice for the last 50 minutes, thank you very much. I just want to recap like 3 things that hopefully you got from this. If you don't listen to anything else, like listen to this. One is the no-code and cloud-based platforms that you're seeing in operations are going to enable this next level of flexibility in manufacturing. And I think with that, it's going to enable another step change in productivity. So I think that's number 1. Number 2 is like go and look at what software is doing. I think we get back to the poll, the rapid iteration, like software, they really come first with rapid iteration. So go see what they're doing, try and understand how you can bring that into your manufacturing environment and your manufacturing practices. And I think just get going, just start, like pick a goal. What are you going to deliver in the next 2 weeks? Deliver it. Like simple. Just start. Just go do it. So finally, before we jump into some questions, I think there's been a chunk come in, which is awesome. So for those of you that don't know Tulip is a no-code frontline operations platform. You're able to build applications that you deploy to manufacturing environments. Those applications can connect with edge devices, whether that's tools, machines. They can connect with enterprise systems to write data back and forth. They're fully adaptable in no code, and I think you can think of like Tulip is a next generation MES alternative. We have many different industries, from life sciences to industrials, to assembly operations using Tulip. We have people all over the world using Tulip. We have companies with hundreds of sites globally running Tulip and tracking their operations. And we have individual startups that are using various view stations. So applicable in all areas, lots of exciting library applications that you can get started with. Excited to hear your questions and have like the last 10 minutes chatting about what I've said, and whether you agree with it, whether you challenge me. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eddie. And we have a few questions here. Some of them are Tulip focused. So I'll first ask the questions that are non-Tulip focused. So first, how do you recommend identifying your critical pain points? What top critical pain do you find is the most common that manufacturers start with?
Yeah, so I think from a pain points perspective, how do you recommend? So I think you've got to understand first what your business objective is. So depends on where maybe you are in your development cycle. What's important? Are you looking for a step change in productivity? Are you trying to? Are you capacity constrained and you need to unlock a bottleneck? So are you having particular quality problems? Do you need to get more compliant? Like I think figuring that out first is important. From there, you can then go and see like what is which machine is my bottleneck, or what is causing me the bottleneck on that machine, or which part or which product is my biggest quality problem. And actually, maybe you don't know that information today, and that would be where I start. That's where I'd spend my first 2 weeks, is actually building a very simple application to give me the transparency on, like, yeah, what is causing me my bottleneck, whether it's quality, productivity. Where do we normally see people start? So I think, like, the quality, like, often quality is a very powerful place to start. Like, if that's something you're having a challenge with, you can very quickly build an application that helps you get transparency around quality quickly. So seeing an example is a customer that was making shoes. Actually, they had a spreadsheet, end of the week, entered all the inspection results into that spreadsheet. The software engineer, also the process engineer, on a Monday presented out those results. And then they tried to figure out what was wrong, like what the biggest issues were, what was the Pareto of failures. The next week, instead of building that spreadsheet, the software engineer actually built an app, which was a picture of a shoe with some different buttons on it that allowed the operators to, in real time, submit their inspection results. And suddenly, from the following Monday, they had a real-time Pareto of where the issues were, and they were also then started to be able to respond to those issues in real time. And actually, just simply creating that transparency and enabling that rapid response time had a significant step change in the quality output of that cell. And then I think the next step with that type of quality application is going and starting to error-proof a process. So building a work instruction that sort of takes the operator through an error-proof process, whether that's connecting to maybe some inspection devices as they go, whether it's collecting some data, so you can really make sure that the process is being followed and it's not going to create an error.
Great. And another question here, getting into Tulip focus questions. What is Tulip's recommendation for scaling the system in the enterprise? Do you need partners or an in-house development team that knows how to use the Tulip platform?
Yeah, so I think that really is like situational dependent, depending on where you are. Like, I think the objective really should be that you are able to build the skills in-house to build and adjust your applications. And I would say I see like the majority of customers taking that route. For sure, there are like some connectivity, like if you want to connect to a particular system, there's some special knowledge needed to do that. So we see like partners supporting our customers to help them with those connectors to external systems. The other part we see partners is actually helping them give a step change to get started, basically. So yeah, it can be a lot of work to get transform your facility and build your first set of applications, learn how to build your first set of applications. So you may need some help to get trained, but also get over that sort of first hump of building. So my recommendation would be, really try and build this capability in-house. Like, it will help you in the long run. I think there will be a hump that you need to get over. Use partners to do that. There will be things that you don't know how to do. Let's pull people in, use them for like the complex tasks to build building blocks for you for later.
There's another question here. Is there a plan to connect Jira to Tulip?
So yeah, we can Jira and Tulip connect today. I like it. I mentioned that, and someone brought it up. That's cool. So yeah, there's not actually anything in our library. I don't think we actually connect Jira to Tulip internally. So our solutions team, delivery team has Jira connected to Tulip. We have all our product suggestions are in Jira, and we have a Tulip app that allows internal people to kind of vote on product suggestions internally, like a Tulip app connected to Jira. So yeah, it's certainly that Jira has an API, Tulip has a connector. So yeah, that's something that you can do, and we'll put it in on our library requests for sure. I don't know. It'd be interesting to know please reach out to me if that, whoever you are. Or I can probably find out and I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, we definitely can reach out to this person. Awesome. And then we have time for just one more question. For the application of the Tulip platform in a manufacturing factory, what is a typical method to make a preliminary estimate of required stations?
So yeah, Tulip is using a station model to sort of for its licensing, and like really the core reason for that is, so a station is a place on the shop floor where Tulip will run, and not you can have as much sort of users, as much app developers, and the reason for that is we want to be focused on where the value is going to be created from the operations. And like for us, we want you to be deploying Tulip and like to be creating multiples of the licensing cost for Tulip in the improvements that you make. So like the station model, a station is a place where Tulip runs on a shop floor. So I think the way to understand your number of stations is to understand that how many places will you have a Tulip app running, or how many devices on the shop floor will you have a Tulip app running, and the way to, and I would say, talk to if you're wanting to deploy Tulip across a whole facility or multiple facilities, please reach out to us and talk to us about pricing for like site licenses and global licensing. That is like, something that needs a discussion for sure with a commercial representation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eddie, for a great presentation.
Yeah, appreciate you taking the time to listen in. Hopefully you learned something. Would be happy to connect with you on LinkedIn or over email as well if you have any feedback, questions, or further thoughts to add. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.